Good day, dear students. We can see a topic today titled Shakespeare's Sources. William Shakespeare is a very great genius, but he was a great borrower. He had his plays had only a very few original plots. He was a great writer, but he liberally borrowed from different sources. He drew materials, he drew plot, characters, and even incidents from classical works, histories, literary sources, and the Bible. Sometimes he adapted stories liberally. It was pointed out by Gerard Langbaine that Shakespeare made use of the plots from different sources. He mentioned it in his work titled Account of the English Dramatic Poets. It was published in 1691. It is good to see how much Shakespeare owed to others, and at the same time, how he differentiated himself from other writers. So now we can see four kinds of sources from which Shakespeare drew materials. Number one is classical sources. Number two, historical sources. Number three, literary sources. Number four is biblical references and allusions. We can start with the classical sources. We can mention two great writers. They are Plutarch and Ovid. And Plutarch's parallel lives provides the biographies of Greek and Roman rulers, and Shakespeare used these sources for writing his Roman plays. Shall we see some examples of Roman plays written by Shakespeare? They are Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus, and Timon of Athens. We can move on to Ovid. And Ovid's Metamorphoses can be considered Shakespeare's primary source for classical mythology. Classical mythology helped Shakespeare to write the plays like Titus Andronicus and A Midsummer Night's Dream. And we can see who inspired Shakespeare to write his early comedies. They are the Roman playwrights Plautus and Terence. He borrowed situational plots and character archetypes from these two great Roman playwrights to write his early comedies. Hamlet also has its origin from a tale of Hamlet, and it is found in Gesta Danorum, Deeds of the Danes, and it was written by one Saxo Grammaticus. We can see the historical sources of Shakespeare's plays. Shall we point out the greatest single historical source? It was from Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles of England, Scotland, and Ireland. The influence of Holinshed can be found in Shakespeare's plays titled Cymbeline, King Lear, and Macbeth. He made some changes liberally in the chronology, characters, and events given in the chronicles to fit his dramatic narrative. We can see the sources for the plays on the Wars of Roses. They are Henry VI, Part 1, Henry VI, Part 2, Henry VI, Part 3, and Richard III. So these are the sources for the plays on the Wars of the Roses. Edward Hallie's The Union of the Two Noble and Illustrious Families of Lancaster and York. Another one is Samuel Daniels' The Civil Wars between the two houses of Lancaster and York. We can make a slight reference to the works of other English historians such as Richard Grafton, John Speed, and John Stow. Shakespeare borrowed the material for his historical plays from these great historians also. Shall we move on to the literary sources? How Shakespeare was indebted to the other writers to write his plays. His plays like All is Well That Ends Well, Cymbeline, and The Two Gentlemen of Verona from Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron. Boccaccio's The Decameron inspired Shakespeare to write these plays. Arthur Brooks' poem, The Tragical History of Romeo and Juliet, influenced Shakespeare to write Romeo and Juliet. Chaucer was a great source of inspiration for Shakespeare for his plays titled The Two Noble Kinsmen, Troilus and Cressida, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. And now, Shakespeare borrowed very liberally from other writers. We can find traces of an earlier work written by other writers to write his Hamlet. Thomas Kit's The Spanish Tragedy inspired Shakespeare to write his Hamlet, the revenge tragedy, Hamlet. And it has been identified that another earlier play, the Hamlet, would have been another source of inspiration for Shakespeare to write Hamlet. Christopher Marlowe's The Jew of Malta would have influenced Shakespeare to write The Merchant of Venice. King Lear would have been inspired by the anonymous True Chronicle History of King Lear. Shall we move on to the biblical influences on Shakespeare? Shakespeare did not use religious tales as such as sources for his plays, but we find a lot of biblical references and allusions more frequently than any other Elizabethan playwright. The critics have identified three most likely biblical sources. They are the Geneva Bible, the Bishop's Bible, and the Book of Common Prayer. References and allusions for Shakespeare's work written before 1598 have been drawn from the Bishop's Bible. References and allusions for the works written after 1598 might have been drawn from the Geneva Bible. We can move towards conclusion now. We have seen classical sources, historical sources, literary sources, and the biblical references and allusions. From all this, we can understand that Shakespeare is well read and well seen by the audiences and readers down the ages. And he has been an avid reader, and he drew from an extensive range of texts. Though he borrowed plots from different sources, it doesn't lessen our appreciation of his writing. He is acknowledged and honored as the poet of the millennium. These sources have helped us to have a great insight into Shakespeare as an author as well as an avid reader. And it is well known that Shakespeare is a playwright with a gift for popular entertainment. And he got a genuine zeal to observe from a wide variety of sources, but he could make them his own. And he could write better than the original works written by other people, other writers. He has excelled all those writers. And it is a great honor to learn about Shakespeare. We are privileged to learn about him. I hope you have understood the topic. I wish you all the best. Thank you.